before I begin today, I would like you to take a minute and think about the last vacation that you went on. I want you to specifically think about if it was a good one, a bad one, and what caused it to be either good or bad. You see, some vacations feel like this, and this, where others feel like this, and this. But the thing is that the way that we look at how we evaluate experiences might not actually be, it's a little counterintuitive. So to illustrate this, I'm going to talk to you about my experience in Amsterdam. So I went on a vacation with my fiance Alita, and we went on a month-long vacation across Europe. And one of the experiences along the way was us stopping at Amsterdam. And so we chose to go to Amsterdam because it was a city we'd heard good things about, and one that was just going to be a fun time. And so when we got there, all of my expectations were either met or exceeded. It was gorgeous. The water flowed throughout the city. Biking was the main mode of transportation, something that I really enjoyed. And just overall, the people were friendly, the food was great, and I was really happy that we had made it. After a little while, we decided to turn it in for the night, and we checked into our hotel. Throughout our experience, we had chosen to go into boutique hotels rather than choosing any name brands, and we'd had success in our previous destinations, but when we checked into this hotel, it just seemed a little different. But we were tired, and so we decided to just turn it in and call it a night. Next morning, we woke up, and we jumped in our clothes, and we were off for another fun day in Amsterdam. But then we started to notice something. We were a little itchy. And specifically me, I was really itchy. And so after a little while, I said, Alita, you gotta check my back. So I rolled my shirt up, and lo and behold, I was a victim of bed bugs. And it was bad. It was really bad. So I spent the next 2 days arguing with the hotel, trying to get my money back, getting itching cream, seeing a doctor. There was something called the Vacationer's Doctor. Had a 1-star on Google. It deserved the 1 star. And I thought it was going to ruin my experience. I was very excited for this trip, and then I had to deal with the burning in my back and the itching. And I thought, like I said, I thought it was going to ruin my experience. But then the 4th day came, and one of the reasons that we chose to visit Amsterdam was because of the Next Web conference, and which is a startup conference, and it wound up being unbelievable. The speakers were great. The food was enjoyable. I had conversations with people from all around the world, those that I don't think I'd ever have a chance otherwise. And it wound up being a profound experience. I just had a great time. And it was enough that it actually overtook everything else that had happened. To the point where when I was talking to Alita about this presentation, she was the one who had to remind me of the bed bugs and how this actually was a good example of how the end really does matter. So we're going to evaluate this experience looking through 2 different lenses. The first one is the traditional way, the way that I imagine most of you think that we evaluate experiences, and then what behavioral science is beginning to show us. So here's my experience, and you can see the traditional way would be to say, take the highs and the lows, and if you've had more lows, more negative experiences, that would be what the overall experience was. So I had 2.5 days of itching and bed bugs. That created a bad experience. Even the end wasn't enough to take over it. That's a traditional view. But what behavioral science, and specifically research done by Daniel Kahneman, is beginning to show is that instead of that overall average, we instead value experiences by taking the highest point or the lowest point and combining it with the end. So just 2 points of an experience rather than that overall average. And so in this experience, the peak was at the end, and so that one experience was enough to overtake my memory to the point where now when I look back, I only think of how enjoyable that conference was. So it's not just this anecdote, this one experience that's showing this. There's numerous studies that are beginning to show this in even further. One of these studies is done by Professor Kemp and a few of her colleagues at the University of Canterbury. And so what she did was she had students who were going on holiday to fill out surveys every day. They consisted of 2 survey questions. The first one was how those students were enjoying their experience in the moment. and then for them to value that experience over the last 24 hours. So every day they filled out this survey. Then when they returned from that vacation, they filled out an overall evaluation of their time. And there was 3 fascinating insights that were gained from this experiment. The first one was that these participants were unable to remember what days were good days and what days were bad days. So at the end of it, they might have remembered that they had one good day and one bad day, but they couldn't actually pinpoint if Tuesday was the good one or Wednesday was the good one. They just knew that it happened. The second one is that the duration of the vacations had no correlation to their overall happiness. So there was some students who had unbelievable vacations that were 3 days long, and then there was others that had terrible vacations that were 7 days long. So the duration didn't matter at all. And then the third one, the one that's most pertinent to this conversation, is that these students the last day of their vacation significantly correlated with their overall feeling. So if they had a good ending, they had a good vacation, or it was much more likely that they had a good vacation. And if it was a bad last day, the same thing. So this is really showing that the way that we generally look at how we evaluate experiences is different. There's another study too that begins to look into the individual experiences within a vacation. So when you're thinking of a vacation, it's not just the overall experience, but it's the various events that you might do within it. So Professor Dew and a few of his colleagues took participants and they split them up into 2 groups. The first group received only one superior good. In this example, it was a DVD, like the high quality DVD, something that people would seek after. But you could think of this as a fancy dinner during a vacation or a all-day excursion. Then with group 2, they received both the superior good, but then an inferior good. And just a quick note, the gold bar is the superior good, silver bar is the inferior good. But in this, the people, or the intuition would suggest that group 2 would be happier with the experience overall, right? Because they got the same goal, they got the same superior good as group 1, but with the addition of this silver bar afterwards, or the inferior good afterwards. But the opposite was true. Group 1 evaluated that experience as being better. Why? Because when they looked back at that experience, all they thought of was that superior good. They didn't think of anything else. Where group 2, when they looked back at the experience, the most fresh thing in their mind was that inferior good. And this was even further suggested when group 3 was added, and that group had an inferior good first and a superior good second, and they were the same as group 1. And so the most pertinent thing in their mind was the gold bar, the superior good. And so now I want you to think back to your vacation. Go back and that memory I had you think of about 6 minutes ago or something. Did you think of the entire vacation? Or did you just think of one memory within that vacation? As you begin to look at your life more, you'll recognize that really you don't think of the overall average of experiences, but rather just 1 or 2 events, 1 or 2 highs or lows, peaks or troughs that are in that experience. So there's 2 other applications that I wanted to talk to you about within the peak end effect. The first one's with client meetings, something that we all do. Whether you're facilitating a group or giving a presentation, the ending has a huge significant matter to the overall evaluation. You all have probably sat through a meeting that was actually really informative or you really enjoyed, but then the ending, the presenter ended with just saying, all right, I'm done now, and then walked off stage. And you kind of were like, wait, did I enjoy that or not? The ending has a significant matter. So in a client meeting, it might be leaving something behind, some sort of takeaway note or something along that lines. And in a presentation, maybe it's making sure that the audience really understood what it was or just make sure that you end on a high note. And then the second thing is task planning. And there's been a lot of research recently about this, and it's rather fascinating because in task planning, whether it's for yourself or whether it's for a group, if you end with the easiest task, it's much more likely that you'll want to come back to similar tasks. So a lot of us think you want to end with the hardest thing, or end with the hardest thing, knock out the easy ones first. But instead, if you save those easy ones for last, you're going to finish them quickly, and then walk away from the experience with that as being the most fresh in your mind, and therefore you're going to want to come back and do similar tasks. So in client engagements, end with something strong, and in task planning, try to end with the easiest. So as I conclude here, if there's one thing to remember, try to do as fireworks shows do, and end with a fantastic ending. Thank you.